Music theory with Microsoft Excel. Mode formula comparison and mode relationship table. This time adding the color factor, part number 2. Get ready and some coffee, because you ain't never seen rockin' unless you excel at rockin'. And yeah, you need Microsoft Excel with that. Don't let them try to tell you otherwise. In Excel, if you don't have access to this workbook, that's okay, because you could just follow along, possibly building the part of the table we're currently working on. If you do have access to this workbook, though, 4 tabs down below, including a very colorful fretboard tab. It's not political, very functional color system. We have the example tab, in essence, the answer key, the prior presentation tab, having information from a prior presentation that we will utilize in our current workbook. The blank tab, the current worksheet we're working on, is where we started with a blank worksheet, starting from scratch, but did so in a prior course or section. This time, we're going to be adding the color factor, adding another layer of information with that color system. Let's go to the fretboard tab to get a reminder of the overall objective we would like to do with a color system, that being to maximize color, to better understand the music theory in general, better navigate the fretboard, more specifically have tools that help us navigate the fretboard. This having a fretboard with a low or heavy E string, the one closest to the ceiling on top. Noting that the colors we currently have laid out are around the collection of notes for the key of C major, and we can tie this color system to either the note names or the node names. So that means the Nashville number system is similar to the color system that we are applying out, taking in essence the key of C and saying, I'm going to keep those colors permanent as we move through all 12 collections of 7 notes. If we use that system, then this color pattern right here, which represents what I would call the position 1, will move up as we go from the collection of notes around the C major to, for example, the D. This whole thing will shift up here to the E, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, what would happen is the colors would remain the same for the notes, but we would only be showing the collection of notes that we're currently working in. Either way, this color system is showing points on the fretboard. Then we also want to think about a color system that shows distance, how far away something is. So in other words, if I'm going from this C to this E, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4 notes away, which typically we define with intervals, which would be a 4-note away major third. With color, you might say, hey, look, what I should do is take this yellow-green and this sky-blue and take the average, or take the average of the hertz for the C and the E, or the log average or whatever, and then get the related average on the color wheel, which would be cool. But we already are utilizing a lot of the colors within the spectrum just to map out our 12 colors. So we've decided to use a system similar to the system for the Nashville number system, where we keep the numbers the same based on the key of a major key. So that's the same thing we'll do here. We want to apply a distance and have a color system that will be the same, but have the color names different than the colors we have here, which means we need 12 different colors to assign to all the different distances. I don't care what we call the distances. I don't care if you call it a half step, a whole step, 2 half steps, 2 whole steps, a major third, a minor third, whatever. If it's a distance of like here 4 away, it's going to have the same color for that distance, an absolute color system. So that means that I could map this fretboard. I could add another system over here that will give me then a mapping of the fretboard, which will have the absolute color system. And we could start to associate that, noting it's a little bit different than the Nashville number system, because with the Nashville number system, I can have the same number for all 12 sets of 7 notes. When we look at distance, this is a 7-note collection, right? And I have to look at the distance from each of the notes. So I need a different color system for each of the notes within the 12-note system. So in other words, if I'm measuring from the C, all of the other 6 notes from C, I have to measure from, and I need a color for. I need a color for all the notes from the F, if I think about that as like my tonic. All the notes from the Mixolydian if I think about that as my tonic. So that means we can make an absolute color system based not only on the major scale, but on like the C major scale, because that's the one we play in most often in Western music. So we'll take the C major color system distances and basically apply those out to all distances. All right, that's the idea. All right, this will make sense once we map it out. So what we did last time is we said, okay, here's the notes. We want to number the notes, and we want to have a letter system for the notes, sharps and flats being the lower case letters in between A and B. In this case, I like to add the shapes too, so that when I see the pattern, I can see it as even and odd numbers. I can see it as shapes. And when you do that, you're thinking kind of like a computer in some ways, and you're going to say, I don't want to think like a computer. I'm a human being. This is music. And it's like, I get it. But it is information at one, right? So if you can see the pattern in terms of evens and odds, or circle, square, or filled in, not filled in, then that's useful. So here's our 12 note colors. I'd like to actually memorize the names of the colors so that I can define the notes by that color. Noting, however, I also could pull out the 7 collection of notes around the key of C, which we did last time, and give those our nodal points. This is the Nashville number system. I'm not going to change the numbers based on whether I'm playing in the Locrian or the Aeolian or the Mixolydian, major, minor, Mixolydian, or whatever. I'm going to keep the same numbers. That's the point. Keeping that same idea, we can give the color. So I'm going to give the color for all of the notes in the 7-note collection around the C major, and we'll have an absolute color system so I can name all the nodes. So the yellow green is the Ionian node, spring green is the Dorian node, the sky blue is the Phrygian node, normal blue is Lydian, and so on. Why does Lydian get the normal blue? Lydian's not the normal one. I don't know, whatever. So then we're going to say we have our formula over here. Now we want another color system for the distance. So the distance, remember, we're always working like in the middle of the fretboard, meaning I'm thinking of that middle as being from 440, the A, to the G sharp. On the piano, C4 is where they typically start from. But they should be starting, you would think, at A from a normal system of the middle of the piano. So I think of the middle octave as 440A to the G, 880 G sharp. And that's the color system that we apply out to. So that means that if I'm in the middle, that's where we actually listen to it. That should be symmetrical on the middle. I would call that 0, not C4. I would call it the middle range from A to G sharp. That's what I think the logical color system would map onto. And then if we go above that, we can then have a higher lightness on the color system. Now, our colors, you will remember, having different names, which are more flamboyant names, almost like a super progressive person. I don't know if woke is acceptable terminology anymore. It's hard to tell anymore, but super progressive person seems like they named these ones. But that's okay, because they're more colorful names for the distance, which might help us to remember that they're different from the names for the note names. I'm going to actually make all of them white as well. So when we see them, they're going to look similar in color, but we'll put the names as white, at least in the middle range. We can't do that so much in the other ranges because it'll be hard to see, right? But in the middle range, we'll have this white text, and we'll have the black text for the note names and the modal places. Now we can use these and go to our worksheet over here and apply the distances out. So I want to apply color wherever I can apply color. Whenever I see something, if there's a color associated with it, I would like to see it with that color. So for example, these represents the nodes. I'm giving a letter for the node. So I would like the Ionian just to be an I, D for Dorian, P for Phrygian. Lydian, I put a Y because the L looks like a 1, so I put a Y for the Lydian. Mixolydian, M kind of sounds like a major or minor, so I've used the X for Mixolydian, A for Aeolian, and that's the minor, and then N because it's backwards or it's crazy, so we're going to take the last letter for the Locrian because, again, we don't want the L. So that's going to be our, so what I'd like to do is color code these. I can color code these. These are points on the fretboard. This isn't distance. These are points. So how can I color code those? So I want them to be these colors, which is Ionian's going to be yellow green, spring, Dorian is spring green, and then sky blue, blue, magenta, red, and yellow. Okay, so what I'd like to do is these right here, I formatted these colors like this. If I hit the drop down and go boom, boom, we formatted them this way. So that's the color formatting. I could just grab those and put it over here, or I could use a format. I could use a conditional formatting to then format all of these kind of like at the same time. So I want to try to use the conditional formatting because that's going to be easier in the long run, although take more time in the short run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the names, which are down here. So the easiest way to do this, I believe, is to say I want to grab the color names, which are going to be these names. Let's see if I can just copy these, and let's copy these. Copy, and I'm going to put them into another Excel worksheet. I'm going to put them over here. Boom. I'll make that larger, and then I want to put this like, and then maybe I just want, I'm going to see that I can see the, hold on a second. So there we go. And then let's just look at get rid of the ones we're not using. So I'm going to hide this. I'm going to hide this. And I'm going to hide this. And I just want the ones that are what they call the natural notes without the sharps and flats, because that we're working in the key of C. And so we'll hide this because that's what our color is based on. And we'll copy that down. I don't really need this. Let's hide that. And then there we have it. Let's pull this over here. And then let's pull this over here. Okay, so I want to take these colors and apply them out to the nodes starting with C. So I'm just going to copy this name. Let's make these smaller. I'm going to copy this name at the C, and I'm going to take these right here and do a conditional formatting. So instead of just making it that color, I'm going to do a conditional formatting. If you see this I, if it contains the I, then make it this color. So we'll say, okay, conditional formatting. If the text contains that I, drop down. I know this is tedious, but this is the way it's done. We want to practice the tedium here. And then the next one, the D, the Dorian, same, all these notes are selected, all of them. And if you find then the text contains the Dorian, then drop down. I want you to then do this, boom, okay, and then okay. So then the Dorian is of course spring green, and then if you find boom the Phrygian, then we want you to make that sky blue. Sky blue. Do. And then if you find the Lydian, then we want you to make that. If you find the Lydian, I want you to make that. Then format paint the normal blue. And then if you find the Mixolydian, which is a G under, if you're looking at the key of C, but it'll be different for all 12 collections of 7 notes, but we're going to use this as the absolute color system, like the absolute number system is used for the Nashville number system. And then we're going to say, then if you find the Aeolian, then boom. If you find an Aeolian, then make it red. And which kind of makes, that's kind of nice because the Aeolian is red, and that's the one I work in minor scale. I'm a minor man. Doesn't sound good. I don't know. Is that, what do you call it? It's like calling yourself a beta, man. Okay, whatever. I like to play in the minor. Shut up. Good. All right, so then let's say I'm going to format these over here. I'd like to say these not be red because we're going to use colors. So I'm going to take these, right click and edit these cells, and let's make them just negative like that. And then we're going to say, let's pull the color formatting here, pull that color format. Now this is going to get really colorful. Put your sunglasses on and go boom. And there we have it. Okay, now we could make the colors for these as well. Those should have a color system too, now that I think about it. Let's just, I'm going to cheat on those, and I'm just going to format paint them this way. I'll just format paint this like this, and this like this. Now these are going to, so because these are going to be permanent, that permanent in terms of whether they're major or minor and whatnot, if we're using like a Nashville number system, right? And so that one is that one, and then this is going to be this one, and then uno más por favor, and then we'll pull this one over here, and let's center all of these again. These need to be centered, and then I can format paint these bad doggies over here, and I could format them above as well. I can take these and format paint them up here, which should be the same. Oh my goodness, you're making a flag again. No, I'm not. It's not. Look at this. Look at this. You're woke computer game programmer. No, this is, it's not what you think. It's not what all right, I'm gonna say, we could format paint these. Why do all the women look big androgynous? For crying out, dude, I won't draw androgynous women, I swear. Let's see, I think I'm missing one. This is gonna be here, 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 and then we're gonna say this goes to here, and this goes to here. Okay. Okay, so now these are gonna be the distances. So now we have our formula. Now note that these distances, you might say, well, like, I've listed out the interval distances. These aren't intervals. This is listing out the formula, which is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. True, but these are still distances because it's just that we're not taking a distance from the Ionian node, which means then we would list out all the intervals. We're taking the distance from the prior point in the system, right? So I'm going from, 2 up from the Ionian gets me to the Dorian node. 2 up from the Dorian gets me to the Phrygian node. 1 up from the Phrygian gets me to the Lydian node. 2 up from the Lydian gets me to the Mixolydian. And if I start on the Dorian, then I'm starting in essence on this point, right? So 2 up from the Dorian actually gets me to the Phrygian. 1 up from the Phrygian gets me to the Lydian, and so on and so forth. So these are still distances, and they're measured in whole steps and half steps, but you could also call them, if you wanted to, minor seconds and major seconds. This is where this naming gets all messed up, but from a color standpoint, we're just going to use the baseline unit, which is whole steps and half steps, and say, well, then we're going a distance of 1 or 2. So if I look at my color system, then I should say, okay, if I go a distance of 1 or 2, we said that that's going to be, if I go a distance of 1, it should be this amber gold. So I want to say, if I see a 1, it's going to be amber gold. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go over here and say, let's take this whole bit. Oh no, what did I do now? Undo that. Que paso. Que paso. We're going to take, let's try it again. I want to take this thing here, copy, enter, and then I want to make a conditional formatting here on this format anytime you see a 1. So if it's equal to a 1, then drop down, conditional format, more colors. We want you to make that color. Boom, boom, boom. So these are all the 1-note steps, all the 1-note steps that we're taking from the prior note. And then if it's a 2, we're going to say a 2 is chartreuse yellow. Chartreuse yellow. That means 2 half steps. That color means it is 2 half steps. So I'm going to say format paint this again. Format paint, if it's equal to 2, not red, we need to make it chartreuse yellow. Okay. Chartreuse yellow. I'm suspicious. Who came up with this? Now, you can't put the name there. You got to put the number. Excel doesn't know names, man. You're a number. It's like the IRS. It's like dealing with the IRS. You're a number. Chartreuse yellow is a number, man. Format paint. We're going to say this is going to be, if it's a 2, it needs to be chartreuse yellow. If I hear chartreuse yellow, I generally walk the other way. But okay, we're going to say, look at this. What are you making here? This is, look, there's meaning. There's meaning. I can read. I can delete everything. Look at this. This is cool. I'm telling you, because I can like delete this whole thing in terms of the numbers if I could keep the color, and I could read the whole thing by color. Right? Isn't that cool? You have to deal with it. I mean, so let's say if we go negative, if I go negative, then if I go negative a step, then -1 backwards would be equivalent to a local distance of 11. So that gets a little bit wonky, right? Because if I went 11 forward, I would get up here, which would be crimson punch. I would get to the same note going 1 backwards. In other words, if I went 11 forward minus 12, I get -1 because there's 12 notes. Or if I go 1 backwards plus 12, I get the local distance of 11. So if I go a distance of 1 note backwards, it should be crimson punch, which is the color for 11 forward, but it's going to be a shade lower. It's an octave lower. So it's crimson punch, but an octave lower, which means 11 steps, which would normally be an 11 note away, major 7, if you want to think about it that way. So that means all of the -1s here, -1s, people don't even think about going backwards that much. People don't even know how, they don't even know backwards exists under normal terminology. So you might say, what are you doing? I've never heard of this before. That's because music is like a racetrack. People only know how to go they only know how to turn one direction. And it's like, no, you can go the other direction. Like in reality, if you think about it, and we need to recognize, you need to recognize that that's the case. What if I go 2 back? If I go 2 back, that would be like 2 plus 12, which would be a local distance of 10 forward. So it should be fuchsia amber. God, my God, I can't take it. But it's fuchsia amber, but it's a shade darker. So we're gonna pull this one over, and we're gonna say, all right, we're gonna make this fuchsia amber. Hit the drop down, and we're gonna say if it's equal to a 2, then it needs to be fuchsia amber. What is wrong with Fuchsia Amber? It's gay. Okay, you didn't. Oh no, you didn't. Just. Okay, it's okay. We're gonna let's do the one underneath it. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna copy this down. Let's copy the formatting down here. We get the same headers. Oh, wait a sec. Not there. Undo. We're gonna copy these on this side, and we're gonna say this is B down. No, not there. Wrong. We need to copy this again and format paint it here. Boom. Okay. And then this can be repeated over here on this side. Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right. So now we're representing all of these nodes by nodal points. In other words, I'm just listing the nodes in order, right? So I have a collection of 7 nodes. If I start on the Ionian and I have an absolute number system, then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in terms of the node points, meaning it goes from the Ionian to Dorian, the Phrygian to the Lydian to the Mixolydian to Aeolian to Locrian. But if I start on the 2, then it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1, meaning if I start on the 2, I'm starting on the Dorian. Let's do it over here. There's the Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, Ionian, back to Dorian. If I start on the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 3 is going to be the Phrygian, Lydian, and so on. So these numbers are representing the modal points. This isn't distance now. We're now back to talking about points, right? They're not note points, but we're referring to the points as absolute modal points. So I can give a color system for these, not using this color, those are distances, but using the same colors we had up here for the points in time applied not to notes, but standardized across all 12 collections of 7 notes to the modes. So how can we do that? Let's make this small again, and I'm going to use this same color system. But now I'm going to say this is going to be for the modal notes. So this would be like a 1. This would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the nodal points: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. So that's going to be the system that we need. I'm going to copy this all the way across. I'm going to color this whole thing with format painting now. So if it's, we'll start on, if it's a 1, it needs to be this color. Ionian is the yellow-green. Ionian is yellow-green, and Ionian is a 1. So I'm going to say, if you see a 1, boom, then make it drop down, boom, to the Ionian color, which is yellow-green. Bam. And then, okay, you see how that's work? Oh, I do not have a circle reference. Why does it do that? And then I'm going to say, I have to look at it. It keeps telling me I have a circle reference. That's not good. Hold on. Why does it say I have a... Then let's do this one. If you see a 2 dropping down, if it equals a 2, then we want you to make that spring green, because that stands for Dorian. 2 is a Dorian and 2 is spring green. And then if it's sky blue, if you see a 3, 3 represents Lydian, an absolute node of Lydian. So if it's that, it's Lydian dropping down, then we want you to make that one sky blue, because Lydian is a 3 and it's sky blue. Okay, and then and then if it's a 4, now wait a second, hold on a second, this is right, but my numbers are wrong over here. I should start, sorry about that, I should start here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7. That's how the numbers should be. And this thing is annoying me too. Get out of here. I don't like that thing. So now this was 3, and then the 4 is going to be here. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to say dropping down, if it equals a 4, then drop down. We want you to make that sky blue. Sky blue. Boom. And then if it's a 5, that's going to be the Mixolydian, and Mixolydian is a 5. It's a little X, and color-wise, I would normally call it pink, but no. ChatGTP has informed me that it is magenta. Magenta is the proper terminology here. And then we're going to go up to, you have to sound sophisticated if you want to make it in high society. Calling magenta pink is, that kind of thing doesn't fly, man. That kind of thing doesn't fly. Okay, wait a second. Something got messed up here. Let me undo, because I put the pink on, or the magenta on the wrong one. I put it on the 4. All right, let me do this again. We'll copy this magenta, and I'm going to put that format paint to the right number, which is a 5. 5, and then boom. That should be magenta. And then, okay. And then 6, all right, I'm not going to let that bother me, even though it should bother you. You need to let it bother you because it says there's a problem. It's telling you that there's, okay, I know, but I'm just going to, I can't let it distract me from my current business. And we're going to say this is going to be the 6, and then, okay. And then we're going to say the yellow is going to be the 7, Locrian. Locrian's crazy yellow. Crazy yellow. 7 Locrian is crazy yellow. So there it is. Oh my goodness, it's so bright. I need sunglasses. I need sunglasses. What are you doing? No right-minded accountant would make something like that. For crying out. It's okay. It's okay. There's meaning. It's okay if there's meaning involved to it. It's not trying to, it's not, it helps with our actual objective. Okay. We're going to say, let's format paint this down here and do the last one. You can use color as long as it's used for good. Okay. And then we're going to put it down here. So let's do the same thing. So we have the same thing down here, but now we've got instead of listing out the modal points by number, we've converted the number with an X lookup table to give us the Dorian node with the symbol of a D. So we have the D and a 2, right? So if I'm on, once again, the Ionian, over here, it goes Ionian to the Dorian to the Phrygian. I can name the Ionian with a small I, or I can call it the 1. And the Dorian is the 2, and the Phrygian is the 3. Now, if I go on to the Dorian and start from the Dorian, then I'm not going to number it as the 1. I'm going to keep the number as the 2, and I can still use the same Roman numeral system because it will create a minor mode. So we have the lowercase 2. And then, so it goes from the Dorian, which is a lowercase 2, to the Phrygian, to the Lydian, to the Mixolydian. So once again, what are these? Are these distances or points? They are points. Are they note points or are they modal points? They're absolute modal points. So I'm going to use a color system for modal points, which is based on the major scale color system. So we'll just apply this here now. Now, I might be able to do this because without having to recolor, do the same thing again, by saying, okay, I did conditional formatting over here. So maybe because these are over here, then it should work. But there's a problem, and that is that the I's are in the Roman numerals. So when I pull over the Ionian I, it might get it wrong to see if it might color some of these other ones with the I color, which is for the Ionian. So let's try it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So see, like if we had conditional formattings here, let's just grab one of those and just conditional format that bad doggy. And then we'll put that down here. over these. Boom. And then there it goes. Now, did it do it properly? So now we've got, it should be the same color system as up top. Man, this is bright. I can't take it. I can't take it. I feel like I'm playing Warcraft with the Warcraft of the 2020. I don't know. I don't play video games, but some crazy woke video game. So let's see. These are gonna. I think it actually pulled in the color properly. Yeah. If it didn't pull them in properly, then what we could have done to change it is say if it was out of order, I could go into the conditional formatting and manage the rules and then change the order so that whichever, if this one was being green because it had an I in it, then I can change the order so that it applies one rule first. That's just something to keep in mind, something we'll take a look at later from an Excel standpoint. I know from a music standpoint, that's kind of weird. Now, again, there's the idea. Now, again, if you look at this worksheet, you're going to look at it and say, oh my goodness, like there's way too much happening here. And I get it. That's why I think it's good that we actually did the color layer later, because we're looking at very many things at the same time. But like music itself, we layer things on top of each other. We layer meaning on top of each other. And I think you can see, like if you properly layer color on top of the system, you can actually name the whole system with the names of the colors, which has a practical use in my opinion, because that means you can actually engage with what you're looking at just from a whole different like system of color, which will make it easier to integrate with what you're doing. So I really think it has use. I haven't fully explored it completely myself, but the more I look at it, the more I'm convinced that it's a useful thing, even though again it comes up with these worksheets that are just like, I mean, if you didn't know what the meaning of the color was here, obviously this worksheet would just look like just a modern art like craziness or something. But if you do know the meaning of the color, just like knowing the meaning of a language, and there's actually a meaning to it, then you can actually read the whole sheet just with the color without any text in it, which is pretty cool. I think it's useful. Anyway, we'll keep on exploring it.